Okay, so context. I am recording this right before my Friday stream, Friday, May 3rd. I have 10 minutes, so let's make something cohesive. Have y'all heard of depression maxing? What I hear it is it's a meme, right? Based on the Sigma grind set / workout culture of blank maxing, this maxing, this maxing, that. And first of all, Generation Alpha, Generation Z, you have a wonderful way with words. I really appreciate it. I think something that's really wonderful about the oncoming vernacular of Generation Alpha is its succinctness. There's not a lot of pretense behind it, I don't think. A lot of what the words mean are self-evident. As a person who gets frustrated with playing in the Game of Thrones and mental and duplicity and the idea of people not necessarily saying what they mean outright, that can be very, very hard for me to sort of like navigate around. I appreciate that a lot of this language is becoming a common frustration with the idea that people's words are in legalese or corporate talk. Like, there are so many degrees of separation from what you want to say and what is said. I think people are frustrated with that nowadays. I think that's why I was so frustrated with that one text generation ad, because ultimately it's just adding more steps in what a conversation is meant to be, right? Sorry, tangent aside, depression maxing. I was watching a video about like how people are like, hey, look at me. I have I have a mini fridge, and on top of that a microwave, and behind that my bed. I barely need to move anywhere. I barely need to do anything to sustain myself and my basic needs. And the stitch after that, the person commenting on that was like, are you depression maxing? And I thought that was so funny. Because it is true. We know what causes depression. Or rather, not even what causes depression, but what cumulative effects and debuffs and such that we are to expect from depression and how we're meant to combat them. And one of those is movement. If you have a job that takes you out of your house, then you're lucky, because it intrinsically helps humans feel better when they're moving around, and inversely, humans are harmed when they stay in one place for too long. Our body being an incredibly complex Swiss watch that is sapient. Sapience doesn't stop it from working the way it does, right? We also know that sunlight and exposure to light can really, really help us out. I fail to get my 10 to 40 minutes of sunlight a day, but you certainly can't. And, look behind me. Look how much the light is shining from my window. Of course I'm getting so much sun right now. But yeah, we often know what our body needs or what we need to be happy. But ultimately, we also bristle up against the fact that happiness is hard. Happiness is not effortless. Even the people who are pretty effortlessly happy require a coffee every now and then, or a good night's sleep. They're looking out for yourself, being responsible for yourself is hard. It's a labor that we must do in order to exist properly, but it's hard. I don't want to speak ill to it, but I think it's funny, the implication of the opposite, right? Depression maxing as a term made me laugh so hard because there's this implication of maximizing your misery. And if people knew that these little conveniences that they're taking eventually built up to their being miserable, I really have my doubts that people would be entertaining those actions and physicalities, right? Even if it is comfortable. Because then they hear that they're putting effort in being as rough as they are. And this isn't to disparage anyone who has dealt with depression in the past or still deals with it or has the scars in terms of mental highways and mental shortcuts that allow them to be depressed more often. Because that's what a scar from a mental disorder is. It's somehow falling back into very, very comfortable, easy trends and patterns. You know when you play certain video games and you want your sim to have a bad time, you're like, how do I do this to them? Have you ever considered how you might be doing that to yourself? How there are joys that you can be chasing, but stop yourself from doing so? Have you considered that you can dedicate 20 minutes of your life toward one activity or another that makes you feel better and that you're just not? There was also a video I watched recently about intellectualizing your mental illness and how awareness of it for some people is enough. Some people are willing to start and stop at, oh, I have anxiety, so this is how I am. And No, that can definitely be important. It's definitely important to recognize yourself, not to look at yourself with such rose-tinted glasses that you can't make action on yourself. But that's only half the journey. One part is admitting you have a problem, and the other part is making action on that, coping, making yourself something that you can be proud of. And I think that people think that therapy is just that like massive event where you figure out what your problems are, intellectualizing your problems and not actually engaging with those, because I feel like as though if you were truly intellectualizing your problems, if you truly had an understanding of the severity of how it affects your life, if you truly had the idea of scope and the feelings around that, then you would do something, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you change something about that? Wouldn't you choose not to be miserable? Ding ding ding, 10 minutes.